Okay, gang, here we go. It is Sunday, the 22nd of May, and this is the Factivist report. We are going to touch on a number of topics tonight. I can tell you that Roe v. Wade will be one of them, but it will be one of several, and I'm ready to turn this over to Dave right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave. Here's the basic premise of this whole thing. Most of this all ties into babies, childcare, Roe v. Wade. I'm going to be talking about some of the things with the legislation on the baby formula. Most of what I'm going to be talking about is legislation, and the legislation that the Democrats have put forward as a solution, and the bullshit arguments that the Republicans made to shoot it down. So let us get started here. And all right. So I'm going to start again, just giving you guys some resources to look at, statistics and things like that. The Guttmacher Institute is very good. And as you see on the top of the page, good reproductive health policy starts with credible research. Okay. Just a couple of things to reiterate. 59% of women obtaining abortions already are mothers. Then I don't know about this statistic now because of everything that's been going on. 38% of women 13 to 34 live in a state supportive of abortion rights. I don't know if that's changed. Almost 1 out of 4 have had an abortion by age 45, as is their right, by the way. As many of you know, there were bills out there to codify abortion in the United States. That was shot down. And I'm going to get into one of the major arguments here. One of the things that the Republicans and the right wing were saying is that the radical left was attempting to legalize abortion up to birth. That is absolutely not true. It's just patently false, actually. Here are some statistics in terms of abortions later in pregnancy. And later in pregnancy, we're talking 20, 21 weeks within the Roe v. Wade standards, by the way. So abortions occurring at or after 21 weeks of gestational age are rare. They're often difficult to obtain. They're typically costly, time intensive, and very few or a very small percentage of abortion providers provide those types. I think it's about 1 in 3. It might be 37%, a little bit more, but it's difficult. A late-term abortion is considered on or after 21 weeks. It's not an accepted medical term, and nor is there a consensus around to what gestational age it refers. A lot of what you're going to be hearing about, if you or looking at, if you read, is viability. Viability is the age or the time in the birth process that baby is at when it could survive outside of the womb. So, Supreme Court made it clear in Roe v. Wade that the courts are not in a position to assess when life begins and when viability has reached, writing, we need not resolve that difficult question of when life begins. So Here is the commonality. So 1.2% of abortions are performed at or after 21 weeks. Most are because of the health of the mother.
Or the health of the fetus.
Of the fetus. So, and I know if I could find it, I'll find it. There was a representative who described the trauma that she had being forced to carry a baby to term when she knew the baby had already died, which is absolutely absurd that you would have to do that.
My mother had a stillborn. So my mother's first child.
Now, this is a fact check. No, Democrats did not vote for abortion on demand until birth. So, let's see.
I mean, if we could stop all the lying, perhaps we could, have a logical discussion about this, but the right way is stop fucking lying. So,
the bills are up. I'm not gonna read in depth on this. I just want you to understand. By the way, this is number 9 in the House bill. After viability, according to the text of the bill, abortion would be allowed only when in good faith medical judgment of the treating healthcare provider, continuation of the pregnancy would pose a risk to the pregnant patient's life or health, not on demand. So this claim, by Elise Stefanik, by Steve Scalise, by all of these people, that this is a way to create a, radical left-wing abortion agenda is just horseshit.
now,
it just is.
One of the other things that we should emphasize, and I'll read this part.
Yes.
Fox News poll released Thursday found that 65% of Americans want Roe to stand, an all-time high in the network's polling of the subject, while just 28% want it to be overturned. That survey found that even most registered Republican voters want to keep the law, 53 to 40%, as do those who say they voted for former President Donald Trump, 52 to 39%. Get a clue, people.
They didn't mention, weeks, or if they were willing to push it to 15 weeks or any of that. By the way, we do not consider pushing it to 15 weeks, but keeping it acceptable.
That's right. It is not. By the way, the poll for the Republicans, this poll was to keep Roe as it is, not to push it to 15. So these people are voting to keep Roe as it stands right now.
Now, again, these bills are here for you to take a look at. One is the Senate bill and one is the House bill. They have that. It died in the Senate, and by the way, anything that's worth anything, most anything that's worth anything, will die in the Senate because we don't have a majority in the Senate. So talk about a radical agenda. Governor Stitt of Oklahoma passed near total abortion ban. Now, life of the mother is still put into consideration. Incest and rape are acceptable reasons for abortions. Anything else? The moment you're inseminated, that's it.
Moment of fertilization.
The moment of fertilization, rather.
That's how they term it. Abortion is banned at fertilization. That's how they avoid saying total abortion ban. It's a total abortion ban.
Yes, it is.
A total abortion ban, period.
Here's another winner. Herschel Walker. Okay. By the way, he has a Make America Great podium, Trump all over the place. You might as well have, you might as well put him in a football uniform with a big T on his chest, honestly, because he is a Trump lackey at this point. He's running against Raphael Warnock. I don't remember the district in Georgia.
I thought you meant T for traitor.
Well, that too. So, Georgia Senate candidate and former football star Herschel Walker said Wednesday he supports abortion bans without any exceptions for rape, incest, or health of the mother. There's no exception in my mind, Walker told reporters after a campaign speech. Like I say, I believe in life. I believe in life. Now, does he believe in life as he's beating a woman?
Right. 2 women, actually.
Right. Well, not at the same time, but, that was a long time ago. Therapy fixed me. Like I broke my leg. I put the cast on, it healed.
He said that after he beat his wife, not after he beat his girlfriend later on.
Right. But here's the thing. Maybe for him,
the cast didn't work so well.
Right. Maybe for him, but for people of abuse, it doesn't go away. You don't forget it. So there's his daddy right there, Trump to the left.
Say this, okay? The fact that this guy is automatically leading in Georgia speaks volumes about his voter base, the voter base in Georgia. And I mean, it's the same state that, gives you Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why not Herschel Walker? The Georgia Bulldogs. It's all they can think about.
For anyone who is in this area, who is a person of color, who is a woman, and who has a conscience, I would suggest, whether you like Raphael Warnock or not, or whatever issues you have, or if you think that he shouldn't have even run because he was a pastor, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you right now, this is not your answer. It's not. You need to keep Herschel Walker out. The man has, what was it? Schizophrenia?
He's got multiple personalities. He has claimed 13 separate personalities, and he has also claimed violent tendencies. He's openly stated that. This is a great endorsement right there for a legislator. Just what we need.
Right. Well, maybe you'll have 7 different people doing 7 different things. You're saving money. It's ridiculous. Come on.
He certainly won't need a staff. Put it that way. I just can't. I just can't.
Yeah, it's 7 different people, but 7 different bad people.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, it's not a good situation.
I've been hearing that. Before I go into the whole thing with the baby formula, let me say this. I am not going to speak about the investigation on Abbott Industries, which, by the way, they produce a lot of different stuff. They produce COVID tests. They produce all sorts of things. But what I'm going to say about it is investigations take time. It takes time to figure out after four babies had bacterial infection, 2 of them passed away. It takes time for the doctors to figure out what caused it, then where it came from, then it has to get to the lab, and then their investigation happens. And both Democrats and Republicans are saying, well, why is this taking so long? Why is it taking so long to get the thing back on track? Well, at the same time, you have Republicans trying to halt progress.
Well, let me just talk to that for a minute. The reason it takes time is, somebody said to me, just, sterilize the plant and reopen the production line. Well, that's not the solution. They don't even know if the plant was dirty.
Right.
They don't know if the plant caused the bacterial problem. The problem is that when these things are manufactured, just like pharmaceuticals, they have raw materials that are supplied to them from other sources. They need to go all the way back and see what lot of what material was used in that particular production for all of that stuff that was recalled. And then they have to identify the source of the contamination, and then they have to eradicate the source of the contamination before they can go back online. This is part of the fucking process. This is a regulated industry. It's based on, regulation to protect the health of infants. These are infants drinking this. So people need to understand this is not as simple as, oh, let me wave my magic fucking FDA wand and make everything all good again.
Now,
That's a holistic look at life, and that's not the way
right.
life works.
I don't know how large this plant is, but yes, that would be part of the process to sterilize the plant. That would be one part of it. Also, to look at all of the employees, make sure that they're not sick. That would be part of it, possibly. I don't think, well, the bacterial, if they're carrying something on their clothes or something, maybe. I don't know.
Did they break a
safety seal?
Process in the procedure?
Right.
These are the procedures are regulated as well as the material. And this is what people need to understand. It's not as simple as as people think it is.
Now,
and by the way, these plants, it's not just a question of sterilizing the plant. These plants have to be sterilized all the time.
Yeah.
They're manufacturing every single day.
Yep.
They have this thing called good manufacturing practices, and they need to adhere to those.
Going to Deb's point, you're also checking every single ingredient in the formula that is produced now. You have to figure out what caused it, which ingredients were contaminated. And on top of that, now you have to be able to get back online somehow and produce more. This is why Biden invoked the Defense Production Act for formula storage. Now you have to prioritize every single ingredient that is used to make this formula, because there's probably other things that it's being used for, but because of this emergency, he's taken this step. And by the way, nobody has said anything about this in a negative way, but they say he's not doing anything. So there were two legislations. One, to provide more money to the FDA to hire more staff and more equipment, testing equipment, or whatever. It's $28 million. The second one was a WIC bill, basically to lessen the restrictions on what mothers can buy, poorer mothers can buy in regards to baby formula, so that they can get what they need. So we have two HR 7790 and HR 7791. So HR 7790 was the funding bill. The funding bill was highly contested, saying, "Oh, you're just, it's, well, they didn't say pork, but the FDA is bloated. They don't need that money, blah, blah, blah." By the way, you're earmarking $28 million. You're not necessarily spending that.
Right.
So the bill is the first step to help restock shelves and end this shortage.
So we can clarify one thing. The FDA isn't bloated. The FDA's money is already committed to certain things. This is something that happened outside of the norm of the normal budget. This is what we call a fucking crisis. Okay.
Right.
There are only four. Part of the problem is this industry's been consolidated. There are only 4 manufacturing plants in the United States that manufacture formula. Abbott Laboratories happens to have a huge manufacturing facility, and that's the one that was closed down.
Yep.
So therefore, it puts a strain on the rest of the system. All right.
They're probably the largest facility,
Right.
to be honest with you. Now, by the way, this kind of thing happens all the time. You may have noticed Jif. Okay, if you have Jif in your countertop, you might want to check it, and throw it out, because they showed contamination of Jif. Guess who caught that? The FDA.
Right.
So things happen, contaminations happen. So this bill, but by the way, to put the press secretary on the spot to give you a timeline is not fair to that press secretary. She is not going to know the timeline yet. I saw that.
Questions, you can ask the FDA those questions.
Correct. This bill is the first step to help restock shelves and end this shortage. House Appropriations Chair Rosa DeLauro, a Connecticut Democrat who introduced the legislation, said in a statement. By the way, she's in the Appropriations Committee, so she would know how much they would probably need. Parents and caretakers across the country cannot wait. They need our support now. This bill takes important steps to restore supply in a safe and secure manner. Additionally, with these funds, the FDA will be able to help prevent this issue from occurring again. So the House also passed H.R. 7791, the Access to Baby Formula Act, that was, again, involving, I don't know if it's food stamps, but
The WIC program.
the WIC program. The final tally was 414 to 9. Those 9 were all your typical, suspects like Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey and those kind of guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
The ones, the Republican Party, the ones that care about the children, as long as they're in the womb.
Right. Again, I'm pretty sure that the WIC program bill has passed. I don't know about the $28 million.
I don't think that has.
No. And that might be a sticking point, because when you talk about spending, it's always an issue with the Republicans.
Right, even though they care about the children.
Even though they care about the children. Unless they're buying a freaking, nuclear weapon or something. Again, here are the bills. And here are the Republicans who voted against the WIC program bill.
So they voted for it, didn't they? They bucked the party.
These are the ones that actually voted for the other one.
The ones who actually bucked the party.
Okay.
Adam Kinton was one of those.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was. Well, I did just do a little video about, don't expect these guys to do this, but here is something. Yeah. Minority Whip Steve Scalise sent a memo to all House GOP offices recommending that members vote against the legislation, arguing that Nancy Pelosi brought up the bill in hopes of covering up the administration's ineptitude by throwing additional money at the FDA, with no plan to actually fix the problem.
We know Steve Scalise is a liar, so he's done that before.
Right. There was I'll put it in here. Oh, here we go. There we go. This is what I was talking about. The only opposition to the legislation, the WIC legislation, came from the Republican Party. Here are the no votes. Andy Biggs from Arizona, of course, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Clay Higgins, who I'm not familiar with, Thomas Massey, and Chip Roy.
And all of those, by the way, are MAGA candidates.
Every single one of them. And if you're wondering why Rep. Lauren Boebert would vote against it, actually, let's go back 1 second. Let me see. I want to see the guys who actually did the right thing in the GOP leadership on this particular one and give them some credit for once. The guys who voted for the $28 million in emergency funding, Reps Don Bacon, Brian Fitzpatrick, Anthony Gonzalez, Trey Hollingsworth, John Katko. I know that name. I know he's from New York. Adam Kinzinger, David McKinley, Tom Rice, Chris Smith, Mike Turner, Fred Upton, and Ann Wagner. So
Fred Upton, unfortunately, is on his way out.
yes,
He's quit.
yeah. And I believe Adam Kinzinger is as well.
Yeah.
So I have to see how that election, it's possible to get a Democrat in Illinois. Possible.
Fred Upton's quitting because he's had his life threatened a million times for a million different reasons.
But these Republicans care about life, right? Yeah.
As long as it's in the womb.
Right. There were no overlap in the two groups of the GOP outlier group, votes. I wouldn't think there would be. So here's why Boebert, well, this is the reason Boebert gave. When asked Thursday why Boebert voted against both measures, despite chastising the administration in a tweet about the formula shortage on May 12th. So let's set this up. She said, babies are dying, and you're talking about this and that and the other thing. You're talking about the Ukraine. You're talking about, whatever. UFOs. You're talking about blah, blah, blah. Babies are dying. So she claimed the Biden administration and Democrats created the issue. No, they didn't. The issue was created when there was a bacterial infection in an Abbott laboratory. That is the truth, and that is a fact. So, Abbott has maintained no evidence shows its formula and plant caused the death of, there were 2 infants, by the way. But the FDA investigation is ongoing. And
It has to go on.
it has to go on, and it has to take time in order to protect the lives of other infants.
You don't just because a company says their formula had nothing to do with it, you don't just take the word of the corporation either.
Right.
It just does not work that way.
And by the way, you're not only talking about infants. I don't know if it would have spread, how their plant operates, but Similac is also for elderly people too. So I'm just saying, increasing salaries for FDA bureaucrats without addressing the production and supply chain issues isn't going to solve the shortage. Now, I don't know if that's true that they're actually going to increase salaries. I would think that they would hire more staff.
And by the way, it isn't a supply chain issue. It's a contamination problem that caused the supply chain issue. But by the way, let's just say this, okay? The entire production of formula had already been challenged by COVID, just like every other fucking thing manufactured in this country or outside this country. We can't get certain paints, and we have been told that because we can't get the raw ingredients for those paints, it's going to be another difficult summer and fall. It is what it is. So this is only exacerbated an already existing issue.
Increasing salaries for FDA bureaucrats without addressing the production and supply chain issues isn't going to solve the shortage, Boebert said in a statement. Democrats should be shamed for offering false hope messaging bills and not real solutions for mom and dads trying to feed their children. Now,
first of all, the money is not going for salary increases to the bureaucrats. That's not what the money is being used for.
Right.
Flat out right there is misinformation and a lie.
If anything, I mean, if anything,
The bill
in
will
terms,
tell you where the money is going.
right. Well, the House Appropriation Committee has to give you, I didn't see it in the bill yet, but they have to give an accounting of where the money's going. So everybody knows. And by the way, Lauren, where's your solution?
Yeah, no, she doesn't have one.
I know. What about Louis Gohmert? Or, any of those other idiots, Thomas Massey or Marjorie Taylor Greene? None of them. Not one. This is what they do. They see a problem. They see a problem that's happening in the Democrat, during the Democrats' term. And if he would have allowed Abbott Laboratories to, or if the FDA would have allowed them to continue, there would have been hell to pay. Okay, they were already yelling at him, why did it take so long to catch this? I think it.
You don't know it's here until it happens. That's
exactly
the matter. That's the FDA isn't in the business of pre-identifying contamination problems. They're in the business of reacting to them. That's
right.
their job.
I wanted before I end, with one last thought. I wanted to show you guys if you saw the KFF, that is the Kaiser Family Foundation. That is that source. It's an NGO dedicated to health-based research and statistic collecting, and they're pretty good. They're just another one that I use, along with Guttmacher, Planned Parenthood, and those are pretty much the ones that I primarily use. So finally, I'm seeing on Twitter all over the place, Clarence Thomas needs to be impeached. Amy Coney Barrett needs to go. Brett Kavanaugh needs to go. I want people to understand, first off, it's never happened in recent time. I think it happened once, very early in our history. And then in the late 60s, Abe Fortas, who was a Supreme Court justice for a short time, he was caught accepting bribes and he had to resign. I don't know if he went to jail. He probably did, but
I'm trying to think back. I don't remember.
That was 1969. But it takes a lot to remove a Supreme Court justice. So if you really want that to happen, really, truly, there has to be a mass election of Democratic senators and House representatives. You need a 2/3 majority plus one. So you need 67 senators to vote. After, by the way, a lengthy investigation, court hearings, all of that kind of thing. So this was just from the American judicial system. It's just a brief explanation of what needs to happen. People, we have what we have right now, and the very best that we can do right this second is to vote out anyone, or I don't know if any primaries are still going on, but make sure that people who are talking about extreme abortion bans or any kind of abortion nonsense, you have to make sure they don't get elected. The fact that Herschel Walker's even in the conversation is terrifying.
Correct. By the way, Abe Fortas did not go to jail.
He didn't.
He did not. He had ethics violations. I would have to say right now, you could have ethics violations and never be removed.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there are any ethics right now.
Right.
Come on, look at who we still have in office. After all the anti-Semitic and transphobic and racist comments from legislators, none of those people get held accountable. So forget
Thomas Massey, listen, I know, again, I know that Madison Cawthorn was voted out. The man was carrying a gun into his place of work. If you walked into your place of work, say you work at a Stop and Shop and you're carrying a sidearm, do you think they're going to tolerate that?
he's been stopped numerous times getting on a plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
He boasted that inside of the Capitol during the insurrection that he was armed to the teeth and was handing guns to people next to him. Now, who knows if he was telling the truth because he's a pathological liar. But if that's the case, then that's pretty telling as well. Who was he giving the guns to? His fellow legislators? I didn't hear one legislator say that they got guns from Madison Cawthorn. So if he was handing them out, who was he giving them to?
Or Lauren Boebert, who I don't know if her restaurant is open anymore, but it is. Okay, you have waitresses with sidearms next to a fryer and ovens.
Yep.
Potential recipe for disaster. And what happened? What happens if somebody gets a little too rowdy? What, are you going to shoot them?
What happens if you don't tip them enough?
Right.
Saying. I certainly don't understand that. I feel safer with my waitress carrying a gun. I just have to say that does not give me that warm and cozy, safe feeling.
Right.
Not what I want to see when I'm in a restaurant, but that's me.
Right.
We're not talking about I'm not in Colorado. And by the way, the restaurant is in, of all places, Rifle, Colorado. So anyway.
But hold on. So all I'm saying is that if you want these things, I understand people, have their issues with Democrats, but this is the reality. This is where we're going. This is what it is. You got to get over your hangups on the Democrats. You do.
I mean, you have one choice here. You have a number of people warning about what the ramifications are if the GOP takes back control in 2022. And these people are not just Democrats talking either. There is Fiona Hill who worked for Donald Trump, who is telling you that democracy is over should that happen. You have Canadian scholars who are warning the people in Canada that the U.S. could be under right-wing authoritarian rule before 2030. And I think they're absolutely right. I don't think it goes until 2030 if they take control back in 2022. We've got to get a clue what's going on here.
Please understand.
Distraction.
Yeah.
Distraction for the New World Order. This is the New World Order. You're looking at it right the fuck here. Okay.
Nick Fuentes is no joke. And a lot of these guys, listen, we have to vote the more extreme people out. We have to vote out the Wendy Rogers and the Janet McGeechans and the Madison Cawthorns and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Mo Brooks and the Lauren Boeberts. I'm not saying that, but don't think they're going away. A lot of these people are going to go to Nick Fuentes' group, and it's going to make them more powerful. And we have to be ready for that. And we have to stand up and get up off of our couches and vote. I know you heard it a billion times, but just friggin' do it. Because it's coming. I know you hear that all the time. It's kind of like, Chicken Little is finally making sense, but nobody's going to listen to him because he said the sky is falling like a billion times. No, this is it. It's now. This is it. Anything that you want, ask yourself, anything that you wanted in the past 10 years, what have the Republicans voted for? What, the infrastructure bill?
What legislation have the Republicans proposed that has actually done anything for the American people?
Can't think of anything, honestly.
There isn't a thing. They don't legislate. They don't govern. Okay? They obstruct and they write bills that oppress people. That is what they do. Okay? All of the bills right now in states across this country, they are writing bills to vote to disenfranchise minority voters. Those bills are all in their state legislatures. That's all being done for a reason. So people need to understand that. They are trying to keep the people away from the polls who will not vote Republican. Let me put it to you as simply as that. They are trying to keep the people away from the polls who will not vote GOP. That's what those bills are designed to do.
While we're on this topic, can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
If women are eventually banned from abortion, and then not only that, that means prosecution of the people who are getting abortions, who have even people who just have miscarriages. They're going to be investigated and they could be charged.
Yes.
There is already, I forget her name, and I'm so sorry that I forgot her name, but there's already somebody charged for having a miscarriage.
Yes, there is.
And she's in jail at this moment. But also, if you're charged with a fucking felony, you cannot vote.
Right.
So this right-wing agenda to ban abortions is like sevenfold, because it's going to remove fucking voters from voting Democrat. That's what this is. In part.
Yeah.
This is a man speaking, and I said this last week. Men, you got dudes. Women are going to stop having sex with you. I mean, I'm not lying to you. I mean, that's why Nick Fuentes was talking about how
he doesn't care. He's a
hold on.
Incel.
No. Did you hear what he said?
I'm the one that told y'all. Yeah,
having sex with women is gay.
Oh no! He said that he wants women in chains.
No. Having sex with women is gay, and he didn't. And he kicked out his, I guess his treasurer or something for having a girlfriend.
Or having a girlfriend. He tried to play it off like it was other shit, but it was nothing but the fact that he was losing power over one of his number twos. That's all it was, because he's a man child.
Now there are other things that eventually I'll talk about. Puerto Rico wants to become a state. That's not going to happen until we get a Democratic majority.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. DC should have representation. By the way,
that DC is not represented. It is absurd.
There are other things out there, but none of these things are going to end. By the way, one of those bills said that DC and Puerto Rico are included, as states in those bills. I think it was the codifying bill. But it's like, why do you have to do that? They are part of our country. Okay, so they're just other things that come up, or whatever it is like the voting rights. You're never going to get that. You have to fight, claw, and scratch for an infrastructure bill. So I'm just saying. Oh, yeah. The CARES Act. Trump was magnanimous enough to do that because he knew that he could give CARES Act loans to his buddies as small business loans. Just so you know, like Tom Brady or whatever.
But let me just say this, not one Republican voted for Joe Biden's COVID bill. Not one. Not one Republican voted for it. Everybody should be aware of that. So.
Yep. Voting against, baby formula bills. while complaining.
Voting against COVID bills.
Yeah,
If you think about it, the Republican people who voted against it voted against their own people. But the bill passed and they got their money anyway. They didn't get their money because of the Republicans, helping them out. They got the money because it passed because of the Democrats. This is what people need to understand. The GOP doesn't even take care of its constituents. So
right.
there are plenty of poor people on the Republican side of the coin too. It's not just the poor people on the Democratic side of the coin. There are plenty of poor white people too.
Get over the whole lesser of two evils argument, because the greater of two evils is pretty fucking evil at this point. I'm just saying, it's such a disparity. It used to be, I had never been a Republican, but I could see some similarities decades ago. No, there's
absolutely no comparison at this point.
none. You see it and what I showed you in that presentation. All the Republicans do is blame, bitch, and moan, and then when a solution is presented, they shoot it down. So ask them, what's your solution? Present a bill, and then we'll talk. But until then, as Deb so eloquently puts it all the time, shut the fuck up.
There you go. Okay, kids, are we good?
Yeah.
We're good. We're going to kill the recording.